From the Peach Bowl to Pasadena, and from the Fiesta Bowl to the French Quarter, bowling has become a holiday tradition for fans of the Crimson and Cream. Sometimes it's nice to stay close to home for the holidays. And remember to never take the opportunity for another game for granted. Let's also not take for granted the sacrifices put in by the young service member student athletes the Sooners will square off with this holiday season. From inside our Sooner Vision studios at Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, it's Sooner Game Day presented by OU Health, proud to be Oklahoma's flagship academic health system. It's Oklahoma and Navy, December 27th. That's a Friday in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl at Amon G. Carter Stadium in Fort Worth, Texas. Kickoff is 11 a.m. on ESPN. We are taping this program 10 days before kickoff, so nothing these gentlemen say can or will be used against them later on this holiday season.
Yep.
Immunity has been granted, looking very festive, in fact, on the set here. The bowl streak is intact, 26 consecutive bowl games for the Sooners. These guys were a part of 8 combined of those 26. And you know my partners, the Butkus and Bednarik award-winning linebacker, national champion at Oklahoma, Teddy Lehman. In fact, it was his 2000 team that made it an actual streak. It made it 2 games in a row. And then
Good job, man.
Nice job out of you. You kept it rolling way back in the day.
I like to take all the credit for that 2000 season.
Not that you're old or anything. Not that it was a long time ago. And the Werfel Trophy winner, academic All-American of the Year and All-American Center, Gabe Eichert with us as well, fellas. It's a streak. Never take that for granted. What do you gain by making a bowl game? We know practices and although you get to be around your teammates, but Teddy, overall, what do you gain by making another bowl game?
Yeah, and I think that is the most critical part of it. And you know, it's changed over the years what you gain. And, you know, the new landscape of college football, I mean, we're going to gain a lot of experience. You know, a lot of younger guys that maybe didn't play a whole lot through the season are going to learn what it's like to be the number one, how you prepare, how you travel as a football team, how you have to try and stay organized down there, keep your mind on the goal. But ultimately, it's all of the practice. And, you know, it's basically an extended spring session. And you get that in the fall and get those young guys a lot of reps. They've been putting in a ton of work on the scout team and you know, just helping the other guys prepare. Now this is their time to shine.
It's all about the development of the young guys for me, and those guys getting valuable reps in these bowl practices. And I know, like Ted mentioned, bowl games have changed a lot. There's also a fun component to it.
Right.
Going out some of the nights with the guys during bowl trips, those are some of my favorite memories of college, especially my last bowl game in New Orleans. Like, we had a very good time.
There's a story that goes with every bowl game.
There's a story. There's several stories that go with each one. And, I mean, those are the things you remember as a college football player. So I'm hoping these guys get some of those experiences responsibly, of course.
Yes.
Sure. But that's fun. And sometimes with how this sport has changed, we forget how it's just supposed to be fun for these guys. And I think a bowl game, you have some really fun experiences that you just don't get throughout the regular season.
Been a few things that have happened since the conclusion of the regular season. The transfer portal has started to teleport players all over the country. We've had a signing day. I see that look on Gabe's face. But for Oklahoma, they've hired a new offensive coordinator, and that is Ben Arbuckle. He's going to be in a sit-back and assess mode, though, for the bowl game. Joe John Finley is still going to call the plays. What's the dynamic at play with the whole situation right now, Gabe?
Yeah, I assume it's very interesting. Now, it sounds like Ben Arbuckle has been very vocal at practice, and he's very involved. You hear constantly about the guy's energy, and I think that's one of the reasons that he ended up getting the job is that energy he has and how it kind of meshes with Brent Venables and a lot of the rest of the staff. But I assume, Ted, that he's involved in the game planning. I mean, you just hired the guy to be the offensive coordinator. You're going to use his expertise to get the plan ready for a really, really good Navy team. So I'm sure that him and Joe John Finley are collaborating when it comes to building the game plan, even though Joe John's going to be the guy calling it.
Yeah, insert a couple of your concepts from your offense into the current offense and see how you can build on some of those things. And what I think is great about it, it's like when the principal comes in and sits at the back of the room, I mean, when you've got a new offensive coordinator who's going to be taking over next year, it's a clean slate for everyone. And this is an opportunity to be like, man, I better show out here and start to put my best foot forward so maybe I'll have a different opportunity next season.
Especially with how rosters work now, there's a limited amount of spots. You want to show
extended tryout.
You want to show the new offensive coordinator what you got. But for Ben Arbuckle, I imagine the main focus right now is developing relationships with the rest of the guys on the staff, developing relationships with the players that are going to be back, but also recruiting. Recruiting, high school recruiting, clearly portal recruiting. I'm sure that's a big piece of what he's doing.
Michael Hawkins Jr. will start at quarterback with Jackson Arnold having hit the transfer portal. Be the first time that Joe John Finley has called plays for him as the starting quarterback, at least leading up to a game. So what do you think Mike Hawkins has maybe learned through this journey for him?
I can't imagine it's been easy for Michael Hawkins, but this is also not a guy we were expecting to play a ton this year.
True.
I mean, he was a true freshman. He ends up starting several games for you. They're just, that experience, you cannot put a value on that experience that he's gotten this season. Not a lot of true freshmen at the quarterback position get that. I know that there were some rough patches, but the hope is he's been able to learn from the ups and the downs of the season. And I'm really, really excited to watch this guy play in this game. I expect him to play at a high level. I would assume that Joe John Finley is going to lean into his strengths, his mobility, his quick decision-making as a passer. So I can't wait to see what Mike does in this game. And he's said all of the right things over these last couple of weeks about wanting to be the quarterback at Oklahoma and not being afraid of competition no matter who comes in. So I think there's a lot of people in this fan base that are rooting for Michael Hawkins to go out there and play a really, really nice game.
Teddy, you look at the defense, and they'll be fairly intact, it feels like, numbers-wise. Now, Danny Stutzman has already penned his letter to Sooner Nation. We'll see about Billy Bowman Jr. And Brent Venables said, I'm going to leave the whole opt-out situation to the individual players. But how much of the defensive side is going to be a preview of next season?
Well, I think it's going to be great. I would love to see Stutzman play another game, and he could probably tack on an extra 20 tackles to his list in this one, in this style of game. But this is a big opportunity for some of these other guys. We're going to have a really good defense next year, but to some degree, we got a little bit of a leaderless Army. Who's going to take over the reins and be the voice out there on the field that gets everyone lined up? You've got to have those type of leaders, and this is going to be a good opportunity for some of those guys to learn.
And a different kind of test in Navy than a lot of the other teams that you see around the country, certainly in the SEC. It's a team that is 8th nationally in rushing the football, about 250 yards per game, Teddy. So when you look at this Navy offense, very quarterback-driven, it looks like. What do you see?
Yeah, it's, some of the traditional triple option stuff sprinkled in with some new age offense that you see week to week. Out there, they'll spread it out a little bit. They want to throw the football a little bit more than what you traditionally see from the academy schools. But if they really want to run it, we know that's the formula. And if they start to have a little bit of success, that's whenever things start to unravel. Because let's just say the little fullback dive. If you start to have success with the fullback dive, you have to move the chess pieces around to adjust to that on defense, and there's going to be a new vulnerability. So you have to be tough, you have to be physical, you have to tackle well, and it's responsibility football.
What about the defensive side of the ball, Gabe? What do you see with this Navy team?
I think they're very physical and they're very disciplined. I know. What a shocker
Yeah, right.
for the Naval Academy. No, they play the right way, and it's interesting. They have like two different identities as a defense. They'll come out and they'll play your more traditional 4-2-5, even front, odd spacing up front, which is a lot of what we've seen this season. But then they can switch to a 3-safety defense and play a completely different style. And I think it's really interesting to watch them bounce back and forth between the two. And I think they play both of them at a decently high level, have a couple of really nice pieces along the defensive line. 18, their safety. I'm a big fan of his. He makes a ton of plays for them. He's a first-team all-conference player. But It's not like Navy's defense has just been shutting people down this season. This is a defense that the Sooners offense should be able to find a rhythm, be able to move the ball, and be able to score some points.
It'll be Oklahoma's first ever appearance in the Armed Forces Bowl, formerly the Fort Worth Bowl. Second time they have faced the Naval Academy. The first time, not a memorable one for the Sooners. 1965, it was on Owen Field here, and they lost 10-0. That was loss number 2 on the way to a 3-7 season. But listen, things have changed a little bit, and I can't even do the math. How many years ago was that, Gabe?
The 65 season's not one we talk about.
No, we don't talk about that very much. But we're going to talk about the Oklahoma offense, and Mike Hawkins will lead the Sooners out onto the field in Fort Worth, Texas, in this Armed Forces Bowl. We'll preview the Oklahoma offense, and can they rely upon a run game that got a little steadier in the back half of the season? The fellows weigh in next on Sooner Game Day. Sooners will have a fresh look on offense next season with Ben Arbuckle hired as the new offensive coordinator. He is around the program, certainly that voice being heard, but this serves as kind of a little scouting report for him and a little let's see what you can do for a lot of the student athletes that are going to play on offense for the Sooners. We just have to see what it looks like. But Gabe, one way or the other, the run game was better. It was more effective when the offensive line got healthy. Febechi Wiwu was the only guy to start every regular season game on the offensive line, but it seemed like there was more continuity the back half of the season. What do you see in the O-line and run game right now?
Well, I saw some young guys get an opportunity and improve, right? And when you play as a young offensive lineman, whether you're a first-year guy, a second-year guy, you're not a finished product. And the most encouraging thing I've seen is the improvement we've seen from Troy Everett at the center position. I think he's playing the best football of his career. And then we've seen a lot of progress from the left side of that offensive line. When you look at Logan Howland and Hito Zaida, it appears to me that things are starting to slow down for those two guys. When you're a young lineman and you're out there and the bullets are flying, you can get a little frazzled. I think they're starting to see things a little more clearly, starting to anticipate some things a little better. And when you feel like you know what you're doing and you're not panicked, that's when your technique is at its best. And I think Howland's technique and Ozaida's technique has gotten better because things have slowed down for them mentally. So I'm really encouraged by some of the things that we've seen from these young guys, and it makes me excited about what this offensive line can be next season.
Certainly seemed like Jackson Arnold running the football was a huge part of that. Mike Hawkins, you could argue, has better ground game ability than Jackson Arnold. Probably not even an argument that he does. So it'll be interesting to see. And then you got the running back room where there's never really been a lead dog emerge. Xavier Robinson's had some bright moments down the stretch. You talk about health with some of these guys like Javante Barnes. And Teddy, it's hard to tell exactly. Taylor Tatum, good, but ball security issues from time to time. How do you see the running back room being divvied up, the carries being sorted out going into the bowl game?
Well, not knowing Barnes' status for the bowl game makes it a little bit difficult. If he's to go, I would expect to see probably the majority of the reps divided between Barnes and Xavier Robinson, and then you kind of fill in from that point on and get some rotation in there. And, you know, I think if Barnes is healthy, this will be a nice glimpse to the future, because I really think that Barnes and Robinson offer a really nice 1-2 combo. They're a little bit different, but they're both physical downhill runners. And you sprinkle in Tatum, who maybe is a little bit better out of the backfield, catching the ball. Same thing with Sawchuk. I think there's some really good balance in that room on what those guys' specialties are. And this could be a glimpse. There's some carryover between the running concepts that we really started to lean on in the back half of the season and what you'll see in Arbuckle's system.
Wide receiver room, unfortunately, has been one full of braces and boots and slings for much of the season, Gabe. But really good news in the last couple of weeks that Deion Burks, you know, he battled the thigh, he battled concussion. He's going to come back for another season. Then you've got these guys, some pieces to work with going into the bowl game.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. Let's just be honest.
Good way to put it.
You've got Deion Burks, who it sounds like he's going to play in this game. That's very good because he's the best player on your team. You need to feed that guy, but the rest of the guys you're looking at are true freshmen. Jacob Jordan, Zion Kearney, Zion Reagans, Ivan Carrion. That's where we're at, boys. I mean, you've got to find a way to get those guys comfortable and ready to play. And a lot of them have contributed throughout the season, right? They've been thrown into the action because of all of the injuries at wide receiver. The tight end situation is also very interesting because Bauer Sharp's gone. He's been your guy in all the 11 personnel stuff. You still have Jake Roberts, but do you even go to any 12 personnel stuff? Or Caden McIntyre and Caden Helms, are those guys ready to go? I think it's going to be very interesting to see what the personnel groupings look like for Oklahoma in this game with how this portal situation is shook out.
We sit every signing day and go, my gosh, they've got a lot of wide receivers in this signing class. And then you get to this situation. That's why you sign a bunch of them. You never know how it's going to shake out. So what do you expect, Gabe? Is this a nothing to lose? Let's cut it loose offensively as best we can in a bowl game situation like this?
Why not?
Yeah.
I mean,
let it
why
rip.
not? I think you got to let it rip. Now, I don't think you need to do anything insane. I think you need to, this is something we say all the time in here, you have to build a game plan to win the football game. We know what Navy's going to want to do offensively. We know how challenging it is to stop what they do, all of the moving pieces that they have, and Blake Horvath at the quarterback position. So you have to design a game plan knowing what they're going to try to do offensively, knowing that you're going to have limited possessions on offense. You need to produce some explosive plays. You absolutely have to. You have to take some of the shots down the field, but you also have to do what this offense has done best down the back half of this season, and that's run the football.
You'd like to possess it a little bit, wouldn't you, to prevent Navy from having the football 3/4 of the game?
Well, when you play against a Navy or an Army, the game can go two different ways, and it usually is decided pretty early on. If you fall behind, well, get ready to not have the football again for the rest of the game. But if you can jump out to an early lead, put a couple of scores, get a little bit of separation, and pull them out of how they want to play the game, things can really open up for you. And I think it goes back to, it's pretty much what every offensive coordinator wants to always do. Establish the run, have success on the ground to where you give yourself opportunities to dictate the defense and expose it and take some shots downfield. And I'm anxious to see if they sprinkle in some things, because we've seen Arbuckle and how he uses some of his skill guys. Do we see a flash of that with Deion Burke saying, hey, we are going to highlight this guy next year, and maybe they give us a couple of glimpses to that?
There's a lot of things that Arbuckle did with Kyle Williams at Washington State that I think would be very, very successful for Deion Burks, whether that's reverses, jet sweeps, a lot of quick screen game to Kyle Williams for just getting your most dynamic player the ball quickly and in space. I'd be really surprised if Burks is out there and we don't see some of that stuff that we've seen from Arbuckle at Washington State for his best player.
So some limited ranks at certain positions for the Sooners on offense. How about on the defensive side of the football? We don't know exactly. We'll see come game time on the 27th. One way or the other, Oklahoma's in position to have statistically its best season on defense in 15 years. How does that play in against the U.S. Naval Academy? The fellas will weigh in next on Sooner Game Day, presented by OU Health. Welcome back. Sooner Game Day getting you set for Oklahoma and Navy in the Armed Forces Bowl, December the 27th at 11 a.m. down in Fort Worth with Teddy and Gabe. I'm Chad as we take you through a look at the Sooner defense. And on paper, they're in position to have their best season statistically in terms of yards per game allowed since 2009. Think about that. That's 15, 16 years. And that's going through their first season in the SEC. Clearly, it has been very much better. Now, we'll see what it looks like as far as who's on the field, but seems like most of the ingredients will be available for the Sooners. Maybe where the rubber meets the road is the Oklahoma run defense versus the Navy rush offense. They're both in the top 13 nationally. Midshipmen rush for about 250 yards per game. So, what is key to winning the battle in the trenches, Gabe? Is it simply hat on a hat, man versus man, combat football?
It is. You better be more physical than them at the point of attack. And one thing that I think people need to understand is when you think triple option team, you think like offensive linemen coming out and like cutting your guys in their legs. Like that's not what Navy does. Navy does, they come off the ball. They've got great pad level but they do all kinds of window dressing, whether that's shifts, motions, pre-snaps, and then they do get to some pretty traditional run game that you see from a bunch of other teams. The difference is they also have the triple option element where they're handing fullback dive, where they're in the wing tee, they're getting out on the edge and running the actual triple option. There's that, but it's just one tool to what they do in this Drew Cronick offense, which is, frankly, a lot of fun to watch. They're just moving parts all over the place, but you have to win at the point of attack, or else it's going to be a very, very long day defensively, Ted.
Yeah, it's discipline. You know, they're going to present a bunch, options on each play, right? And you have to defend every option. You can't just defend the football. And they force you into one. You have a way to defend every single play, and there's going to be a free player there to make the tackle if it's defended properly. But if that guy misses the tackle, everyone else is off defending the pitch guy or the dive guy, and your responsibility as the quarterback. If you miss that tackle, he's off to the races because you've got guys that are deployed all across the field defending other parts of the offense. So tackling is critical. Physicality is obviously going to be critical, but you have to be smart. You have to communicate well because they're going to present something pre-snap that is going to be different than what they actually get to.
So Brent Venables saying this week and leading up to the bowl game, he's going to let opt-outs manage their own social media accounts or their own announcements. They're not really going to talk about it. We've seen a letter from Danny Stutzman to Sooner Nation. We'll see about Billy Bowman, but minus those two guys, who are some of the names and the green dot? Who'll be the green dot guy? The guy that has the communication in his helmet.
I'd imagine it's going to be Kobe McKenzie.
Okay.
He's been the guy out there the most with Stutzman. He's going to be playing that Mike Backer spot. And I would imagine that he's going to be the guy running the and I kind of envision that for the future of this defense, and I think he's more than capable of handling that. On the back end, I would imagine that you see if Billy Bowman doesn't play, which I don't know, but if he doesn't, I imagine we see a lot of Peyton Bowen start to rotate through and play some of that, some of the younger guys, some of the freshman safeties perhaps. So, it's going to be a little bit different. There's going to be a different voice out there, let's be honest. Stutzman was the guy the entire season, and not having him out there is going to be a little bit different. So this is a good opportunity to get acclimated to that new voice.
Who looms important for you in this one, Gabe?
Well, I think this defense, it's pretty much going to be intact. When you think about it now, clearly Danny Stutzman and Billy Bowman are tremendous players. But we've seen a lot of Kobe McKenzie and Kip Lewis together at inside backer throughout the season. That is not something that is foreign to this group. We've seen Peyton Bowen and RSJ play a bunch together in the back end at the safety spots. So this is the defense that we've seen throughout the season. Now, you're missing two great players, I understand that, but I don't expect some big drop-off. Now, Navy does a lot offensively, and they're a very, very difficult offense to prepare for, but I expect this defense to come out and play at a high level.
You say they do a lot. Eye candy, that's the term we use. Shifts, pre-snap motions, all those sorts of things that teams will do. And typically we say assignment football, when you play an armed forces team. Is there a lot of that with this, Teddy? How do you stay focused on what you're supposed to do when you've got all these things being shifted around on the offensive side?
Yeah, it's difficult. Maybe the hardest part, first and foremost, you got to get the call in fast. You got to get the call in fast so everyone can communicate what defense we're going to be in, and then you've got to defend the finished formation. You understand that you're going to be presented with something, and they're going to end up somewhere else. So film study, reviewing what they've done throughout the season, you have to be able to anticipate from every set piece where they can motion to and what they can create, and you have to be able to communicate that quickly and be prepared, like I said, to defend the final formation.
It's not going to be fun. It's just not. It's a difficult preparation, especially, let's be real, Navy is coming into this game with a ton of positivity, a ton of positive momentum after what they did to Army. They absolutely dismantled Army in that game, so they're going to be fired up. You got to match the intensity in the excitement. You got to want to be there. You got to be excited to go play this football game. You can't say, oh my gosh, we got to play Navy. That's not how this works. If you don't show up with the right attitude and the right aggression and the right intensity, you're going to get beat. So the preparation piece, that should all take care of itself. I think you have to have the proper leadership in the locker room that has this entire football team ready to go. And if you're ready to go, like Navy, the most talented teams they've played against, they've gotten beat. The teams that have had a lot more talent than them, they've gotten beat. OU's got way more talent than Navy. OU should win this football game if you prepare the right way and you arrive on the 27th with the proper intensity.
Here on Sooner Game Day, we mourn the passing of former Sooner Jimmy Wilkerson. He was a two-time All-Big 12 linebacker, recently passed away at the age of 43 due to a heart attack. Jimmy Wilkerson went on to play parts of 11 seasons in the National Football League. We send all of our thoughts and prayers out to his family and friends everywhere.
I'm stoked. I think this is awesome. And obviously, all of our energy and attention is on Army right now. Get ready for this, but couldn't ask for a better bowl selection and a better opponent. Growing up in Oklahoma, I was a huge Sooners fan growing up. My first college football game was an Oklahoma game, 1985. Barry Switzer's the head coach. Jamel Holloway's the quarterback. Running the triple option. Saw him play against Colorado. Brian Bosworth was playing. Went on to win a national championship that year, and that was when I decided I want to play college football. Going to that first game there, so I grew up a big time Sooners fan. So it's great to be playing a storied program like Oklahoma.
Well, that 1985 Coach Switzer National Championship team, there are a lot of people that feel that way about it. Their introduction to Sooner football back in the 80s. But Brian Newberry's second season as head coach, lengthy career as an assistant, played college ball at Baylor, but hails from Oklahoma City, Westmore High School, and grew up cheering for the Sooners. And that soundbite that you just saw was in between their game that they played against Army, and they won the Commander-in-Chief trophy. They beat Air Force as well this year. He's got a good football team, and if people doubted them, Gabe, as you said, that win over Air Force, I should say they had over Army in the final game of the year, certainly showed everybody that they were for real.
They whooped them. I mean, I watched every snap of that game. I love that game. It's on the bucket list. Got to get to one eventually, but Army's a really good football team. No one can take that AAC title from Army, but Navy got after him.
That's right.
I mean, absolutely got after him, and that was really, really impressive. And like we mentioned earlier, they're going to be carrying a ton of momentum into this game, Ted.
Yeah, and when you look at how that game unfolded, Army turned the ball over at least 3 times. Special teams were a factor. That is their exact formula. If you turn the football over, give them extra possessions, and your offense is standing on the sideline, it's going to be a long day.
Fake punt that you're talking about in that game. A big fella running down the field.
Need a little bit better ball security from 96. And he's a good defensive lineman. Plays with tremendous pad level, hard to move. But yeah, that was fun. They're going to have a lot of tricks ready to go for this game, and I don't think Newberry's going to hesitate to deploy them if he feels they've got an advantage.
And one reason they will be so difficult is the quarterback. That's Blake Horvath. He missed 7 games a year ago, got injured this year, missed a couple of games, came back for that Army game. He had 311 total yards and 4 touchdowns. So tell us, when you watch Horvath, just how critical and how good is he, Ted?
I think he does a great job running this offense. You see he throws a good ball. They want to pass it more than you're typically used to with the service academies. They want to throw it around 20 times a game, 15 to 20 times a game. Here he is out of the traditional wing tee, taking it under center and just quarterback sweep right. And they get out and block for him well. They run some quarterback lead stuff, as you see right here. I think he's a good, tough player. He's hard to bring down. He's not super elusive. He's like a one-move guy. He's going to make one cut and then go north and south, but he is tough, and he's the leader of that offense.
I like him. I think when he's healthy, that's when their offense is at their best. They're going to lean on him, but I agree with Ted. He throws it a lot better than you typically think of a quarterback throwing it at a service academy. Sometimes it looks like those guys are launching grenades. No, this guy, he can spin it a little bit, and they have their passing game, their concepts, it's a lot more than what you traditionally see. Like, they have some just straight drop back pass game. and they run it on first down.
Yeah.
They run it on second down. So it's a lot, man, and you have to limit Blake Horvath in this game, or else Navy's going to score points.
He's not quite Roger Staubach throwing the football as a member of the U.S. Naval Academy, but he's got some weapons. Alex Teska, now Horvath's far and away the leading rusher on this team, but Teska, how do they utilize him as kind of that secondary ball carrier, Gabe?
Well, anytime you're handing the ball to a guy wearing 46, antennas go up.
Yeah, we only see half of his helmet.
He's a fullback is what he is, but he's a really athletic fullback, and they use him every way imaginable. They hand him the dive. They get him out just in traditional run game and some of the gap scheme runs where he's lined up at the running back spot. They use him as a lead blocker out on the edge in some of the option game, some of the sweep game where they're attacking the perimeter. They throw it to him quite a bit out of the backfield. They quite literally do everything with this guy. So he's just a football player, man. He's not super elusive, but you better buckle up. If you're about to have a collision with 46, you better buckle up because this guy finishes runs with physicality.
I wonder how Rocky Blyer and Tom Rathman felt about that, but he's an athletic fullback that Gabe just said just a second ago. Eli Heidenreich, 37 catches and 6 touchdowns.
Look, there's Teska.
There he
Bang.
is.
Yep.
Get your attention when he's out there leading for Heidenreich. What do they do with Heidenreich?
Everything. It's kind of the same deal.
Wait, they do everything with both of these guys?
Yes, that's exactly right. He's going to be a blocker at times. They're going to hand him the football at times. They're going to throw it to him out of the backfield a lot, which, we see the RPO game in, your week-by-week college football, right? It's a run and a pass combined, and that's always really difficult. What makes it extra difficult with Navy is these guys are your lead blockers. They're not just a guy on the backside that may be showing that he's staying in and then releases late. These guys are taking you to the football on the running plays, so you're pouring downhill and, oh, no, this is not a running play. He's not blocking. He's going to run right past you downfield, and they're going to try and hit him on a fly route down the sideline or an angle route to the inside. They just utilize all of their players in a bunch of different ways.
Now, defensively, they've been very opportunistic. 23 turnovers gained. That is tied for 12th in FBS. And their linebacker, Colin Ramos, is a first-team All-American Conference performer. Teddy, what do you like in him?
Physical, really good in the box. And, watching all their linebackers, one of the things that really stands out on tape is they do a really good job at staying square. And you would think, well, that's an easy thing for a linebacker. It's really not. Whenever you're trying to get to where you're supposed to be on a play, you're often turning and running. And that's what offense wants you to do, to get wash, get you out of the box, get some lateral movement so they can cut back inside of you. These guys do a really good job staying square in the box, fighting off blockers, and making good, solid tackles.
You were talking in an earlier segment about the safety. That's Rayon Lane, the third, first-team all-conference guy. And then Deshaun Peel, we talk about their takeaways. He's got 5 interceptions back there. How good is this Navy secondary?
Lane the third is fantastic. He will be, when they're in their 4-2-5 stuff, he's playing one of the deep safety spots. When they're in their 3 safety stuff, he's that third middle safety, and he is just making plays all over the field at about 8 or 9 yards deep. They just use him in a variety of ways. I think he's a really fun player to watch. But the secondary as a whole is solid, but I don't think they run particularly well at corner. Now you look at OU's wide receiver situation, you say, okay, how are we going to exploit that? And I would love to see whether it's Deion Burks or, Zion Reagans. We know he can run. You got to take some shots at their corner spots. They have given up some big plays in the passing game, and it hasn't been on overly complicated things. It's just guys getting run by with speed. So I think the group as a whole, they do a really nice job of disguising what they're doing from a coverage standpoint. They bounce back and forth between the two deep safety look and the 3 safety look, and it makes it challenging on the quarterback. But you got to take some shots at these corners because I don't think they have elite speed or anything like that at the corner spot.
What vulnerability might you see in Navy defensively,
Well,
Ted?
I think you got to give them a little bit of their own medicine. Whenever you see what our offense has kind of become the back half of the season, we're really reliant on running the football. So I think you got to give these guys some eye candy pre-snap, right? Make them think about what we're going to run, and then force them into the run fit. Make them think about having to tackle some of these big physical backs that we have. And then whenever they're thinking about that, they're worried about the formation, they're worried about tackling, that's whenever you start to exploit them on the outside with some go balls and take advantage of our speed advantage.
Oklahoma and Navy in the Armed Forces Bowl. That is the 27th of December down in Fort Worth, this being the first season of the 12-team college football playoff. We'll take a look at those games and make some picks for you next on Sooner Game Day, presented by OU Health.
Thank you to our cornerstone television partners, OU Health, OG&E, Fowler Auto Group, and Coca-Cola. Riverwind Casino. Good times, great rewards. The best place to gear up for game day is shop.soonersports.com. The Sooner Sports Podcast is your all-access radio pass to Sooner Sports. Listen as Toby Rowland and Chris Plank talk all things Sooners. New episodes drop every day. Log on to Soonersports.com/podcast or search Sooner Sports Podcast in your favorite podcast provider. The Sooner Sports Podcast is presented by Allstate and Riverwind Casino. Log on to Soonersports.com/kids for information about joining the Sooner Kids Club, presented by OG&E and brought to you in part by Orthodontics Exclusively, Mathis Home, and Devon Energy.
Our NCAA update is presented by Phillips 66. Get ready to go. Bill Belichick to North Carolina.
What?
Yeah.
Is that real?
I think it is. I think it actually has happened. Ted.
It's crazy. I love it.
I don't know why I feel this way, but I'm really hoping it works. Yeah. I don't know why. I've never cheered for North Carolina in anything. And for some reason, maybe it's the way that his NFL career ended.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's the best coach of all time. And the way
Is he?
Yes.
Okay, what about
What do you mean?
We could have a debate about Nick Saban.
What do you mean, is he?
Okay, I'm curious to see how he fills out his staff.
Yeah.
You know, as a head coach over the top of that organization and over the program, knowing what he knows about scouting and all of that, I think it's going to be great. If he fills out his staff with some really capable guys, I think it's going to be something to watch.
Great year for Travis Hunter, recognized as he should have been at the conclusion of it by winning the Heisman Trophy. Okay, let's take a look at our pick'em standings because we have 11 games to pick. Now, I was not here for the last show, and so I gave you guys a little bit of ground there. Oof. Toby Rowland making the picks for me.
A strong finish for me. Look at that.
Dang, that is strong.
4 out of 5, Ted. 3 for 5, which leads us to Riverwind at Pick'em. Riverwind, good times, great rewards. We've got 11 games to get through, fellas, so we got to dial it back just a little bit. College football playoffs, game number 1, Clemson at Texas. Texas defense, legit top 5. I'm not sure that Clemson's offense is. Teddy Lehman, you're first up.
Yeah, I'm taking Texas to win the game. God, I would love to pick Clemson here, but I think Texas's defense is too good. They've got too many players out there. I think it's going to be a good game, but Texas wins it.
I do not love how Quinn Ewers is playing coming into this game. However, I just don't think Clemson can produce enough explosive plays offensively. Give me the Longhorns.
Agreed. Texas as well. Tennessee, Ohio State. James Pierce Jr., that defensive line, they're going to give Will Howard fits. But this is not Michigan, so Ohio State actually has a chance to win the game. Gabe, how about you? Who are you picking?
I'm taking Tennessee. Ooh. I think that Ohio State is going to struggle to block that Tennessee defensive line. I think it's going to be a low-scoring football game, and I think Nico will produce enough explosive plays in the passing game, along with Dylan Sampson and what they can do on the ground. Give me Josh Heupel to go get it done.
I agree. I think Tennessee's going to win. That's going to be a nervous stadium. The last time they were in there, they lost to Michigan, and they had to watch Michigan plant that flag out there. So there's attempt to. There's going to be some nervous energy in there, and I think Tennessee's going to start fast, and I think that's going to be a factor.
Dylan Sampson makes big plays. I think he will make one in this game. I got Tennessee, too. SMU and Penn State, all of us went that way. SMU and Penn State, does either team really have a great win? Does it really matter? I know this. Kevin Jennings, the SMU quarterback, is really, really good. I'm taking the Ponies. Let it ride. Who you got?
I actually like that pick. I was too chicken to take it. I took Penn State to win. I just think they're too good on the line of scrimmage. But, man, if SMU has some success early on, that's going to be something to watch.
I just don't think SMU is going to be able to get that run game going against Penn State's defensive line. I like that group a lot, and I just don't think SMU has the type of offensive line that can move that group from Penn State. Give me the Nittany Lions.
That part of the bracket with Boise State and those two teams, there's very, very opportunistic area for one team to take advantage of. Indiana, Notre Dame, Kurt Cignetti, the National Coach of the Year. Both these teams' offenses and defenses are in the top 6 nationally as far as scoring is concerned. That makes this one interesting to me. Teddy, who you got?
I'm rolling with Indiana. I think it's really close. It's kind of hard to pick this one. I just like the momentum that Indiana's got, really like their offense. They got a good quarterback, and defensively, something they don't get enough credit for. You mentioned it there. Excellent, really sound across the front on defense. Give me Indiana.
Riley Leonard's legs end up being the difference in the game.
Okay.
Give me the Irish. I think getting that extra hat in the run game will be big for Notre Dame. Expecting it to be very close and low scoring. I'll take the Irish.
And nasty weather expected as well. Could be the case
for
some
people
of
up
these
there
games.
are used to it. What do you mean? Who cares?
I think those home games are going to be awesome, though.
Yeah,
it's
they
going
are.
to be beautiful.
I'm taking the Irish as well in this one. Okay, so Texas or Clemson against Arizona State now as we move on to the quarterfinals. I'm taking Texas in this game. Teddy?
I'm taking Arizona State.
Whoa!
I can't bring myself to watching picking Texas to advance. The momentum, they are so hot. Their offense is really explosive. They play well on defense. They get the running game. It's going to be, I understand, like talent-wise, they're going to be outmatched. I get it. But I just think the momentum and what that team has done this year has been really fun to watch. Picking Arizona
I'm told
State.
we have to pick it up.
Vibes guy right here.
Yeah, that's right.
Vibes guy.
Now, I'm worried that all the Kenny Dillingham talk to Ohio State after they lose to Tennessee may be a distraction, but give me Arizona State.
I will take Texas.
Okay. Tennessee or Ohio State versus Oregon?
Give me Oregon.
Yes.
I think that Oregon's playing with a ton of confidence, and I think they have – I think when you look at their defensive line and their offensive line, they may have the best combination left there at the line of
in
scrimmage.
a perfect spot. They got a bunch of great skill position players. Dylan Gabriel's had a great year. I expect that to continue.
I agree. It is them. SMU or Penn State against Boise State, the team that somehow got a bye out of this deal.
I'm taking Penn State to beat Boise State. I just think that Boise, as good as Ashton Genty is, as special of a season as he's had, I just think Penn State's going to be too talented.
Yeah, you kind of have to take Penn State, don't you?
One of the worst matchups for Boise State. Give me Penn State.
Indiana or Notre Dame against Georgia. I got Georgia. You guys taking Georgia?
I'm taking Notre Dame.
Oh, wow,
I like
big
that.
upset. Okay,
Give me Georgia.
Georgia as well. Let's get to our Final Four. Gabe Eichert, you're up first. Let's have a look at yours and tell us your picks.
Okay, well, I've got Penn State playing for a national championship, which feels strange, and I've got Oregon over Texas. Give me Oregon.
Okay,
to win
Oregon,
it all.
the national champs.
Undefeated season
Who
for
you
the
got?
Ducks.
Yeah, for me, I've got Oregon and Arizona State. Obviously, they're
Whoa!
one, and then Penn State and Georgia. I think Georgia, until I see differently, I still think Georgia is the best team in the country. But Oregon, I think, may be too hot at the end, and the quarterback's going to be the difference.
I got Oregon, Texas, and Oregon winning. I got Georgia, Penn State, Georgia winning that, and Georgia
with the backup
national
QB.
champions. We got to get out of here. We took way too much time. We do have one more segment left, though, on Sooner Game Day. Wrapping up Sooner Game Day with Hot Takes presented by OU Health. Proud to be Oklahoma's flagship academic health system. Hot Take.
Michael Hawkins over 100 yards rushing.
Yeah, Mike Hawkins, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions.
2 touchdowns, no picks. Big day for Mike Hawkins. Sounds like he's going to be the MVP of the Armed Forces Bowl, 11 a.m. December 27th, Oklahoma versus Navy. Enjoy. For Teddy and Gabe, I'm Chad. Happy holidays. We'll see you next year on Sooner Game Day.